So let's take these walls off. Find which one to break off first. Just snap them off. Save your plastic. You can use this again. Alright, so there it is. And I can see the separation right here between the two mold halves. Looks like the one I just poured is a little lighter than the other. So something's different. Alright, so what I have to do is pull on this until it separates like that. And then, looks like I did okay. Everything's coming apart nicely. There you go. So there's the two mold halves. That's the original pattern. Now, I'm going to be really gentle here because this is wax and I don't want to break him up in case I want to use him again. Let's see. I can see a little bit of wax came off. There's the original pattern. Came out pretty good. Alright, this is exciting. One little piece of wax here I see in the mold. Teeny tiny one. That's fine. So now if you can see this, there's the two mold halves. This is the front of the figure. This is the rear. And there's two little stubs in there I'm going to take out. But as you can see, all these little acorn nuts that I put in there, they're the locators. So now I just line those up and I get a nice tight fit. And when I pour or inject the resin in it, the urethane, it's going to fill really nicely, hopefully. So let's see how that goes. I've molded my original parts in two-piece silicone rubber molds, and they're sitting here. Now, I've gone ahead and I've shot the initial shots into my molds just to check and to see where I had to put extra vents. And what vents are air passageways to get the resin, the liquid resin, to go down into the mold, fill the cavity, and then pop up out of the other side. So in other words, the mold has to vent. So think about your house, it has vents on it for air. Get in and out. So I have 3 small molds here that I made for a friend. These are parts that he wanted extras of, which is one of the great things about casting. You can get some original pieces and make 5 or 10 sets of parts. In his case, these are figure pieces. He wants to make extra figures for a diorama. So as long as you're not selling the parts that you make, you can copy other people's stuff. In other words, he has taken some kit parts and given them to me and said I need extra. And basically he told me it was for a diorama, so I don't have a problem with doing that. So you don't want to copy parts though and recast someone else's work and sell it. That's a no-no. Don't do that. But this is a very convenient way to have extra spare parts for yourself and your model building. So 2-part molds. I have 3 small ones. I have my big figure mold here, and I have the 2 parts, the other parts for this figure, which are his satchels that go on his hips and the arms for the child on his shoulders. And what I'll do is I'll show you guys how to inject the mold. In other words, how I prep the mold, shoot the plastic into it, and then pull it apart and pull the part out. Okay? Here's a brief rundown of the materials that I'm going to use to cast a part in the rubber mold we made. First thing I do is I get a couple rubber gloves, vinyl rubber. Vinyl's preferred with mold material. Not sure why, but you can get vinyl gloves, put them on. You'll need stirring sticks to stir the 2 parts of the material together, the plastic. I use a product called Smooth Cast. It's from Smooth On, Smooth Cast 320. There's 300 and 320. 300 is white. 320 is like an off-white creamy color, fleshy color. I like that because you can see the detail on your casting better. So Smooth Cast 320. There's talcum powder or baby powder that we'll put inside of the mold to help the mold release better, or the material. Actually, it helps the material flow through the mold better. I have rubber bands here. We'll strap the molds together with that. When we mix the material, we'll use Dixie cups or a larger plastic cup, depending on how large the mold. 2 parts. You have 2 Dixie cups. You can weigh them on the scale, make sure they're the same. Use a syringe, a plastic syringe. Hobby stores have these. Basically get a bunch of these, because as you're casting, you are putting these aside to clean later and use again. So get yourself half a dozen of these so that they can rotate. Popsicle sticks to stir the material. Always have a big box of popsicle sticks on your workbench. They're really handy. So that's about it. I have a pressure tank here. I use a pressure tank to push air out of the mold. Once I inject it, I put it in there, cap it up, seal it, and put it up to about 50, 60 pounds of pressure. Let it sit. When the material you'll see in your cup hardens up, you can release the air, take the mold out, and let it sit and cool. So you don't have to do the pressure tank. It helps a lot. They're not very expensive. It hooks right onto your regular compressor. If you have a regular, Home Depot-y, big boxy compressor, that's fine. And that's it. So let's do a mold. You can watch me do it, and hopefully it'll make sense to you. The first thing I do when I make a casting out of a mold is I heat the mold up a little bit. I have a microwave here, and I'm heating my mold up for about a minute and a half. Larger molds a little bit more. So this is just about done. So I'm just warming these molds up because the casting plastic, the resin, flows better through the silicone rubber if these are warm. So don't have to be hot, just warm. Don't want them cold. So the second step is to take some talcum powder, baby powder, and put it, just a little bit of it, where the parts cavities are. Put the second half on and shake it up a little bit. So what you're doing is you're coating both sides of this mold, and then shake off the excess into the trash can there. So you're just putting a really light coating on the inside of this so that when you inject, there's less friction. So that's that. Put these together. The next step is to strap the molds together. So we're going to use rubber bands. Go to the office supply store and buy a box of assorted rubber bands. And you just want to get it tight enough to hold the mold together nicely. And I usually do 2 on each side of the mold, so I go like that. Next step is to inject the molds with Smoothcast 320. And what we're going to do is kind of calculate, and I know the inside of these molds, so I know how much to make. I'm going to use these little Dixie cups. I'm going to turn my scale on. And I always do part A first. I make it a habit so that I don't mistakenly do one or the other. In other words, do A first and then B. Trust me. So what we'll do is we'll open part A. You mix this up beforehand. Take a stick or something, mix it all up. Make sure it's nice and mixed up. Put your cup on the scale. And I'm going to eyeball how much I want here for this mold. And I think it'll take probably about a half a cup. So I'm going to do a quarter cup here. It's 1 to 1. You mix 1 to 1 on the A and the B on the plastic. So I've got 32 grams. This guy on here, and I'll measure off 32 grams of part B. Off. So that's A and B Smoothcast 320. Got equal amounts in these 2 Dixie cups. So what I'm going to do is take my syringe, nice clean syringe, make sure it's a clean one. I'm going to mix these 2 together and very quickly inject it into the mold. I'll put it in once, maybe twice to make sure air bubbles are out of it. Second squeeze, you usually see some air escape. Do both of them, put them in the pressure tank, turn it on, let it harden up, and then we'll take them out. So here we go. And you stir it up until it's uniform consistency. You'll see it. It starts out kind of cloudy, and then when you get it mixed up, it's pretty clear looking. Okay, I think I'm good. So, you just suction up some of it into your syringe. Pick one of the vent holes. Push it down in there. Start pushing material, and you'll see the little holes fill up. These are small molds, so it doesn't take a lot. I'm not seeing any air bubbles, so I'm going to take these 2 molds, put them in the pressure tank. Pop the lid on the tank. You've got to be pretty steady here when you do this because you only have a certain amount of time before this stuff hardens up. So just be very deliberate. Cap it tight, turn on the compressor. It's going to make a lot of noise. I'm going up to about 50 psi. I'm going to let that sit. This stuff has hardened up, sort of. And the idea with the pressure tank, like I said, is to exert pressure on the mold to push out any trapped air inside of it. Air is your enemy when you're doing this stuff, and it can really drive you crazy. The little vent holes that you make with brass, after you make your first casting, I'm on about the third or fourth on these, and I think I finally got it right. You have to make a few molds and look at where the air's not getting to, and you'll see them. They're the voids, or the big voids in the material, like air bubbles. So you have to find a spot near that, and I try to do all of my vents straight up, all on the same side, so that I can lay it there and inject and see who's filling and who's not. But air vent, very important. Brass tubing, sharpen the end on a radiac wheel or on a grinder, and use them. You just push it straight, and you hold the mold on the table, push straight down until you hit the table and push in so that it pierces the other side, and you just pull the rubber out, and then you got a vent. Alright, I'm going to release the air on this tank. The vacuum tank and the pressure tank are very important if you're doing a lot of runs of parts, if you're doing a whole lot of multiples. Because, like I say, these two pieces of machinery are about the air. Getting the air out of the rubber and getting the air out of the mold when you're doing the casting. So if you're serious about it, it's good to invest. They're cheap. Alright, so there's the two molds. I'm going to sit them here. Actually, what we'll do is we'll take the rubber bands and stuff off, but I'm going to let them sit and cool off before I pull the parts out. Okay? So there they are. They're all undone. I'm not going to pull them apart yet. I want them to cool just a little bit. So, I'm going to clean up a little bit, and then I'll pop these open and show you the inside. So I have my final molds here, and I left a part cast in each one so you could see it. That's the figure I did. These are the little parts for a friend of mine, little figure pieces. These are the arms that go with the big figure. This is one that we just did, one that I showed you how to when we injected the mold. And you can see the little vents. Let's see if I can show them to you here. Little shots of plastic coming off each part. That's where I put the brass tube through the rubber and created a vent so that the plastic would flow through. I even got the detail down to the little finger on the end of this, and it worked well. So that's molds and casting. I use Smooth-On materials. I think they're really great products. Highly recommend them. The Mold Star and the Smooth Cast, really good stuff. So until next time, keep doing your hobbies, and we'll see you then. Making molds and casting. It's just a little postscript about the materials you're using. These materials are from Smooth-On. Smooth-On Corporation makes really great silicone rubber and casting products. They make all kinds of stuff, and they have really great videos on their website. So check out Smooth-On if you're interested in this. Smooth-On includes instructions and material safety data sheets with all their products. Make sure you read these and understand the products you're working with. Cleanup's fairly easy with the silicone. It's a little messy when you're mixing it up, but cleanup is just, it peels right out of the container, usually in a big wad of the stuff you've wasted. It's also, it cleans off tools very easily. As you can see, it just peels right off. So cleanup's pretty easy with the silicone. Make sure if you use any type of mold release on other types of materials, you wear a respirator, shoot it in a spray booth so that it clears out. Like I say, rubber gloves are essential. So that's about it. Making molds and casting. It was great. I do it all the time. So check it out if you're interested. And we'll see you next time. What's up, Bo? What's the matter? What? What? There's a man stuck in that little box? I think we should get him out, don't you? Okay, let's rescue him, Lassie.